This video is brought to you by Wicket Cricket Manager. If you're enjoying these live chats, our main channel has even more World Cup videos looking at the greatest performances, the quirkiest stats, and the epic tales of World Cup cricket. This show was made by HCLTech, a company that believes in partnership so much you can read their name on the Australian shirt. This show leans in hard on data and technology, so we are proud to work with HCLTech, leaders in their field. Welcome to Red Inca. I'm Jared Kimber. We are going to talk about the biggest surprises in the World Cup so far. It was kind of funny. I got people on Discord to do it and my team to have a look at it. And there was even a couple that they missed. It has been a surprisingly surprising World Cup so far, is the best way of putting it. If you are in the comments, if you've got a question for me, obviously Super Chat's the best way to go. But if you just want to put in your surprise, Dr. Daywalker has Netherlands versus South Africa. Who else do we have here? Suresh Alam's got Netherlands low order batting. Although I'm not sure that should be a surprise because they did that against West Indies as well, didn't they? Dr. Daywalker, South Africa batting first wins the game most of the time. Well, that's not a surprise for them. But if you do have one, put them in the comments. Or if you've got something that you're desperate to ask me, also put that in. But I'm going to go through as many as I can. I got a massive list from the Patreon supporters and everyone else. Let's have a look. Glenn Phillips is bowling. He's one of the first. And it's a weird one to start on. But considering he came in as their sixth best bowler, maybe their seventh best bowler, depending on how you feel about... Well, Neesham was in one of the early games, wasn't he? And they've got so much out of him, and he's taken so many wickets. Obviously struggled a little bit more in the last game when he had to bowl out. But it would be hard to say that Glenn Phillips, who started as a wicketkeeper, who came into this side, is like their seventh bowling choice. Bowling as well as he has is not a surprising thing. Just have a look where he is on the wickets takers. I mean, he must be above some really good players. Like he's above Siraj. He's got 6 wickets, so he's equal with Siraj. He's ahead of Wokes, Taskin Ahmed. Mark Wood, the Fizz. It's ridiculous. It is surprising. Marco Janssen is another one. We got that a few times as well. And Marco Janssen, I think what is surprising with him is the batting is slightly less surprising because I think they were on an upward tick with him. There was certainly enough to say that they were going to get someone to average 20 to 25 and occasionally get them some big innings. And when they needed someone, be able to chip it around, I think he has those basic skills. But also the hitting ability, the fact that they probably feel, even if they're wrong, I'm not saying they're wrong, but even if they turn out to be wrong, they probably feel a lot more confident now with the number 7 position than they have like forever, like a very, very long time. But then the flip side for me is the Marco Janssen bowling, of course, which is coming into this tournament. I was shocked at how bad he had gone in the power play. And, as someone who heard about him before they saw him and followed him in the IPL and, these other leagues he's played in, watching him play in international cricket, he should be able to take early wickets. I'm not always expecting him. I think he's taking a wicket every 16 balls or something ridiculous at the moment in the power play. He's taking a wicket in every single power play, of course. That is probably not what I would have expected, but I would have expected someone who can swing the ball sometimes, seam it sometimes, has height and has pace to be able to get fairly consistent wickets in the power play. But he's gone from one of the worst power play bowlers in the world to one of the best. And this just talks to you so much about form. And some of these other teams who came in with players who are more battle tested and ready for their roles and have gone absolutely nowhere. And then the guy that South Africa threw in there has just been like, yeah, I was okay number 7 before, but I'm going to become a really good one now. And I was a terrible power play bowler before. Now I'm going to try and be the best in the world. It's a hell of a turning around. Someone else said the Champions Trophy qualification. I mean, that's funny on many different levels. One, that the ICC hadn't made a big enough deal about it before, that a lot of people didn't know about it. 2, that the teams specifically who should have known about it didn't. That it was very weird that it wasn't a bigger that the ICC didn't make a very big deal of it coming into this tournament as well. And I know they probably don't want to go away from that, but I get press releases from the ICC and all sorts of crap all the time. It would not have been that hard to just go. And of course, in this World Cup, I mean, I've heard things about Aramco a lot. Who are one of the world's worst polluters, pretending that they're helping the ICC with their with their recycling. I think I could have heard more about the Champions Trophy. And certainly some of the teams felt that way. Aryan Dutt is another one that came up when we were asking for the biggest surprises. Certainly one there that I think coming into the World Cup, as I think I've talked about this before, but I'd seen him bowl and I thought he was okay. And maybe in a couple of years, we'd see him develop a little bit more. I'd seen him get hit a lot. I thought technically there was a lot going on that was right, but I didn't expect this. I actually thought they should have brought Pringle, who played some games for them. Not as good a bowler, but just a clever cricketer, like can bat a bit as well. But Aryan Dutt has been brilliant at what he's been asked to do. What would he be? Their third main bowler in this side, probably him or Baz Delita would be the third main bowler. Incredible that he's done it as well as he has. Someone else said Omazai with the bat, with the ball, just playing everywhere at the moment. I got another one here that says lack of swing for the left armers is definitely a surprise. I would say lack of swing for right armers has been a bit of a surprise. I do think that with the wobble ball, we have seen less swing in two reasons. One is that as you bowl the wobble ball more, bowlers like Chris Woakes don't try and swing it as much, and that's understandable. Well, I think the other reason is also that even the players who are not always using the wobble ball have tried it, and most bowlers I've talked to have said that once you go to the wobble ball, it does affect your swing, and you don't swing the ball as much as you used to afterwards. That's not always been the case. I think Sean Pollock and Jimmy Anderson would be perfect examples of that not being the case, but a lot of bowlers have that trouble. So I think that some bowlers who have even tried wobble balls, like someone like Mitchell Starc, who spent a good couple of years trying to get the wobble ball to work, and now has gone back to swing, probably doesn't swing the ball as much as he used to. But we haven't really seen that many swing bowlers in this tournament either. But it's certainly an interesting one going ahead. Someone else said, I'm not sure about this, but Ratchan Ravindra almost being in the conversation for, player of the tournament. Look, I think at one stage he was, right? Fairly early on. He's probably not there at all. But Ratchan Ravindra as a concept is surprising, right? Like this, I don't know, what would you even call him? A backup to your backup to your backup kind of player that they were using out of position, and he's still out of position, and he's been sensational for them. What else have we got? New Zealand beating the world champions with 3 bowlers. That's less surprising now, but it was pretty surprising when it happened, wasn't it? That's one of those things that it's some days when we're doing, maybe less this, but maybe a piece at the end of the tournament or whatever. It's incredible to think that is how this World Cup started, right? With New Zealand having no fit players, having to pick, one less bowler, and then just absolutely smashing England in the face. And we thought that England would, at least not be that bad from then on in. But they've been pretty much that bad ever since. Someone else said Afghanistan pulling off admirable chases. I think that's very fair, isn't it? I think Afghanistan being good is acceptable. I think I had them as 3 wins for their high end. They're already there, and they still certainly have a chance of making 4 or 5. So I don't think we were surprised that they could win games, but winning them in the way that they won them is absolutely that is another level. I think that is definitely something that is surprising. I'll just see what else has been in the room. Let's have a look. Kieran says England's batting failing to bat more than 35 overs at 3 of the 6 matches. I think, as I said, Kieran, before, that one of the interesting things about that is that they're actually losing their wickets every 24 balls, so they're actually batting to only last 40 overs in total. It is absolutely remarkable. You're right there. It would be hard to disagree with that. All Things Cinema saying Baba Azam shitting the bed. I mean, yes, I think he was in a bit of a form funk coming in, and so Pat. But having said that, there have been times during this series as well where he's looked okay. But yes, even if you factor in he was in a bit of a form slump beforehand, this has been pretty bad. I think the more surprising thing for him is the spinners, and my guess is, that there was probably a lot of people put a lot of money on him to be one of the top batters, and he's not even in the conversation, is he? Who else we got here? Oh, Nitish says, Dilshan Matashankar being one of the bowlers swinging it consistently. I would say he's more surprising that he's done as well as he has, just because some of the other left armers like Bolt and Stark have not taken wickets. Shaheen hasn't been very good in the power play either. So Matashankar, slightly different bowler than those other guys, maybe in some ways even a more traditional swing bowler than some of those other guys. But I think he's been surprising in that, we talked about Janssen. Well, Matashankar is the second best power play bowler, right? And, look at some of the bowlers in this tournament. This is a good one. All Things Cinema says, Angelo Matthews turning up and blasting out England. I mean, that was hilarious, right? I mean, absolutely surprising is one thing, but that was dead set hilarious that we got to that happened. That he came back is surprising. That he was in the 11 was surprising. That he took wickets, come on. Where do we go with it? I thought it was surprising when he took a wicket in 2019. How is he still taking wickets now? Absolutely surprising. Someone has said Temba Vuma not performing well enough. Well, he's not been. That's Amon. Sorry. Yeah, he certainly hasn't made the runs that he should have so far. Hasn't mattered. Everyone else has been in form. In fact, they could almost go into the game with 4 batters. They could just tell Miller and is Miller the other one who hasn't made runs? I think, or maybe hasn't made as many runs. You can tell Miller and Temba to take the day off the way that some of these guys are matting. And Abdullah Shafiq coming in as a replacement owner with less than 3 games of experience and doing this well. It's a very fair call. It's definitely he was a player who you just a bit like Ravindra. Why would you think that those sorts of players would have an impact? It doesn't mean that we think they're rubbish or anything, but they're coming to a World Cup. They haven't played a lot. They're going to be, I mean, we didn't even know if he'd get a game. Absolutely, I give you that. What else have we got from earlier today from Patreon and my friends? So someone put in Stark not being the bowler of the tournament. I don't think that is surprising because he'd been so good for 2 World Cups in a row. You assume there'll be some regression there, or he won't have as good a tournament. And I don't think he's quite the white ball bowler he was during the last 2 tournaments. However, he's been terrible, right? He's been very, very poor. And I think he's got 1 wicket in the middle overs. He's not striking up top. That is more of a surprise. And, someone asked the other day about he's saying he doesn't do very well in India ODIs. Well, he's done very well in Asian ODIs in general, and he absolutely blitzed the season of the IPL. He's not the same bowler he was as when he blitzed the IPL. That is very fair. And I do think there's some technical problems, or not technical problems. I think he changed the kind of bowler he was, and it hasn't helped him. However, having said all of that, he should be better than he is, and that's certainly disappointing. There's 100 questions about England, but here's 100 points about England, I should say. But one is, how bad England have been, considering there were no signs of how that bad they've been pre-tournament. I think that's quite interesting, but I wonder, we didn't really see them as a full team. I suppose we did slightly against New Zealand. It felt like they were foxing all the way there, which is probably part of the reason they have struggled, of course. But yes, the fact that there weren't signs is kind of surprising and not surprising. But part of it is that they didn't play that much. And if they had played more beforehand as a full strength team, they would have been a little bit different there. Netherlands performance, but despite the top order being non-existent. Yeah, I think that is definitely surprising, because if you were to say to me that Netherlands would have won 2 games now and that their openers would be averaging -25, I think I would have doubted you. I'm not sure I would have taken that one. So yeah, I think that's a very, very good one. The Netherlands have, and it goes back to that West Indies game. I know they didn't fail in that West Indies game, but they left their back order, were they 4 or 5 down? 4 down, I think, needing 200 in that game as well. And so that bottom order just keeps stepping up. And it's, it's like Engelbrett, it's Nidamanuru. So it's not even like always the regular players other than Logan and Edwards. What else have we got here? Oh, Kusal Mendes' approach in the early part of the tournament. Again, that goes back to the New Zealand 3 bowlers thing. I've almost completely forgotten that Kusal Mendes started this tournament like someone had lit his ass on fire, right? He just came at this tournament and, absolutely blew everyone apart. good batting wickets, but he he could have batted it a run a ball too. He absolutely went for them. So yeah, I think that was certainly that's a good one. And then we got Shaheen and Harris Ralph's lack of penetration. Yeah, I think that's fair. Um, I still think Shaheen's been good, but I don't think he's been penetrating. I think he's been clever, which is different. And he still managed to. What would he have now? He must be fairly high up the wicket takers list, isn't he? Yeah, so he's second now, but he hasn't penetrated, especially early on the way that we would expect. If anything, it's not that he hasn't he hasn't penetrated. Now it sounds like a weird sex podcast, but it's that he hasn't taken wickets early on. That's what's been surprising, and he's taken so many later on, and it's not something that we are as used to with him. Someone said here, how about South Africa being chasing versus setting a total? That's got to be just someone pranking me. That can't be legit. I'll take a quick break here, and then after the break, we'll come back with a few more. I know there's a super chat from Rake Jake. I will get to that at the end. But you're listening to Red Inca with Jared Kimber. And quick break, and then we'll be back.
A few years ago, I had a panic attack after ESPN Cricinfo made me their global writer. I'd earned that position, but I also felt like a fraud at the time because I didn't really understand how I wrote. I understand that there was a process and gears and different styles and things, but how it all came together felt a little bit random. And so I began to panic like a golfer with a natural swing, worried one day I'd just end up with the yips. And would my career be over? So I took my writing apart piece by piece until I understood it. And then I figured out I could teach others all the mistakes I had learned. So I started an online course where I tried to make it as cheap as possible so people like me would be able to afford it. It's called Fans with Laptops, and heaps of people from around the world have used it so far, from first-time writers all the way through to professionals trying to improve. I started with a simple plan to make each writer the best they could be. And from the feedback I've received over the years, it seems like the course does that. But after COVID, my career changed. I came to YouTube, started podcasts, wrote emails, and formed a new career on my own going forward. So I now had something else to offer, the multimedia side of things, social media and everything else. Not to mention that I was building everything up as an independent. And so I added all of that to my course. So if you have ever wanted to work in sports as a writer or podcaster or making videos or anything else, Fans with Laptops is the place to start. If you think you qualify as a fan and you have a laptop and you want to work in sport, click on the link.
All right. Welcome back. Someone has said my All Things Cinema podcast has said my Hindi YouTube channel. That's actually been there for ages. A few people had already subscribed, so someone must have seen it. But yes, I think it was a surprise to most people that I suddenly had a Hindi channel, which you can go check out. Although if you're listening to me, you probably don't need to check it out unless you just want to for fun, of course. I think Keshev, and also I had this a couple of times, which was Kane Williamson recovering from an ACL injury that quickly. I would say that was already surprising, and then copping a throw on his thumb and putting him back out for another month. Might be the best injury for his knee that he's ever had, but certainly not for his hand. I'm not sure if that is surprising or just weird, or I don't know. It's kind of like an Alanis Morissette song. South Africa being outplayed by the Netherlands, but standing up to everyone else. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think they didn't really stand up to Pakistan, did they? So, again, South Africa chasing. Scott Edwards is batting. Look, I think Scott Edwards has been pretty good for a while now. He didn't do well in the T20s. I'm sure I commentated on him making some runs against, I want to say, England. Maybe it was West Indies when they had all those games. He's certainly been someone on my radar for a long time. The way he plays and everything else. But perhaps getting to the level he's got to at the moment is a little bit more surprising. This is good. This is right in my wheelhouse, this one. Santner going on a wicket-taking spree for the first 4 games. So he's actually, I think he's slowed down with his wickets since then, hasn't he? And he's gone back, and he could end up still with a bowling average of around 35 to 40, right? I don't think he will. I think he'll manage to keep it lower because he took so many wickets to start with. But yeah, if you'd have said to me before the tournament that Santner would, because I had him in tier 4 of my spinners, but if you have said to me that Santner would have a tournament where he goes at about 5 runs and over, 4.9 runs and over, maybe takes wicket at set 45, I would have said that's a good tournament for him. He should take that, right? He's got bowling average of 24 or something at the moment. Absolutely ridiculous how well he's gone. Who else we got here? Shami's bowling average is 8 at the moment. Yeah, I mean, maybe, I've done a couple of projects on this recently on almost every channel I have, but maybe it should be less surprising. I did mention at the start of the tournament that he had, one of the best strike rates of ODI cricket ever. Doesn't mean he's going to average 8, of course, but certainly he's been an above average strike rotator for a very, very long time. So I think that's very fair. What else have we got here? Aaron Dutt and Roloff out bowling Pakistan spinners. Well, Roloff hasn't had a particularly good tournament, right? I think he's going at over 5 and over, averaging 55. It's funny, the two spinners I got the most kickback on was Roloff and Santner for the World Cup. And Santner's gone one direction, Roloff's gone the other. So I'm halfway between those two. But people were very upset that I had them both as low as I did. But Colin Ackerman's taken wickets. But there's no doubt, I think he would be hard-pressed to say that Aaron Dutt is not... what's he got? He's got 8 wickets at 32 at under 5 runs and over. Like, Pakistan and Sri Lanka would take that as their main spinner right now. I know we've already talked about it before, but I don't think it's as surprising that Pakistan spinners were bad, because, again, I flagged that before the tournament. But I do think it's surprising that Aaron Dutt is the person who's made them look even worse. Tikshana is another one that I thought is definitely worth having a look at. I had him in tier 1 of my spinners. I don't think he's bowled poorly. He's just... him and Mujeeb, I know they're very similar bowlers. Mujeeb's got 6 wickets so far. Yeah, he's got 6 wickets. And Tikshana has 3 wickets in 5 games, an average of 76. His economy rate's 5, so he's holding the line then. Maybe not quite as good as he would like it. And if he got a couple more wickets, he would bring that down. But I would have expected him to probably take like 1.2 wickets a game. I don't think I was expecting him to take loads, but I'd expected him to take 1.2 wickets a game, and through that end up with a very good economy. And look, he's struggled in this tournament so far, and he missed some of the really good batting pitches as well, which, he's probably very happy he did now. We did Angelo Matthews. Australia relying heavily on their openers. Again, I think that was something that we looked at before the World Cup, that Australia had a problem with their middle. I think they thought their middle would magically come together, which is a very Australian thing to do at a World Cup. We just put good batters there. They'll work it out. But if you looked at the numbers beforehand, I would probably say that is less surprising than perhaps some other people might think it is, especially when you factor in the spin, which I don't think I'd looked at until maybe the first game. And then suddenly you're just like, wow, okay, this is going to be tough for them. South Africa consistently going in with 4 paces and no Shamsi. Yeah, I think this is surprising. I don't think it's like, I don't think it's like Angelo Matthews has 2 for against England and they're sending them out of the tournament. Surprising. But I think it is, I think it's certainly on the realms of, we all thought, because they had 2 good spinners who spun it in 2 different directions, that they would probably go 3 seam and 2 spin. I wonder if early on they weren't as sure about Marco Janssen. Very early on, we're talking about here. And maybe they thought by having the 4 spinner and the 4 seamer in the side, that would allow them to mitigate his issues. They could almost use him as a middle overs bowler then, if it wasn't working for him, which is possible. I think that's fine. But yes, I think it's still surprising, but it is a South African thing, and all their seamers have done so well that and seamers in this tournament, as that was one of the questions that someone had before. Have I brought that one up? Yeah, no, it was so Nitish said Virat Kohli bowling. I love it. Death Knell said pace is having such a big impact on an Asian World Cup. I think that's a very, very fair thing. I really want to get to this in a proper video and have a look at the numbers. And I don't know how far we can go back with World Cups. I think we might be able to have a look at all the World Cups and see how pace and spin have done at each tournament. But we've seen that the seamers maybe haven't been quite as good at the start. and haven't swung the ball or got the ball to wobble. But through the rest of the innings, I would say that the seamers have been outstanding. And the spinners, it looked early on, especially through Maxwell and Phillips, and Ashwin, this was going to be like an off-spinning World Cup, right? Or certainly a finger-spinning World Cup. But again, that hasn't quite been the case. Certainly not the way that I would have expected it to be. So, I think that's quite interesting as well. Path, I've got your super chat, so I'll get to that at the end when we get there. What else have we got? Pakistan's abysmal bowling. That's probably pretty fair. That's surprising. You probably put Sri Lanka's in there too, by the way, because yes, they've had injuries, but they've still had a lot of their best bowlers now. And I think they bowled better in the second part of the tournament, but they were really bad in the first part. Certainly not getting any wickets through spin when you had Walalage and Tikshana in your side. Even Danajay De Silva, the old DDS, he's bowled horribly in a tournament where part-time off-spinners have done quite well. England winning 1 game out of 6. Yeah, and I think that's different than them not making any runs and us being surprised. I mean, you could have them on the list about 8 different ways. But yes, I certainly think that was an issue. That was surprising, because even if I was to say to you that they played horrible so far in this tournament, you'd be like, okay, but what's their record? And if you said one win from 6, you'd still be surprised at that. Bangladesh imploding. I suppose looking back on it, Tamim not being there at the top caused them some problems, but they've got some very experienced batters who also haven't made a lot of runs, and their bowlers have just not been very good. So yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us would have had Bangladesh down as a likely 10th finish. Even if you thought Netherlands had a good tournament, you still probably wouldn't have had Bangladesh as the likely last place. And they might not finish last, of course, but it's looking more that way. Someone else has said Maxwell's golf injury. Yeah, that's a very, very fair one. Hey, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We should ban golf. This is a more cricket nerdy one, but I like this. There's one here that says England dropping their all-rounders mid-tournament only to bring them back. I get that, because what if England had played their all-rounders for 3 games and then decided that wasn't working and then went with specialists for 3 games? I think I would have thought to myself, they've given themselves a fair chance with the all-rounders and now they need to pivot. But they pivoted so early away from the all-rounders. I think it shows that they're just not as ready for this as they should be. I mean, there's no lies. They know that themselves at this point. But I think that is probably another part of that. England not throwing the kitchen sink at the white ball. Now, this is interesting, right? Because they're losing a wicket every 24 balls and they're not slogging. That's and we've seen the stats. Strike rotating is their biggest issue. That's such a weird, again, if you were to say England didn't make any runs in this tournament, everyone in their head would just be like, well, they've just tried to slog every single ball and it's gone horribly wrong. Again, not being the case. So very interesting. Ratchin replacing Kane and then some. Yeah. I mean, to the point at which I don't think anyone was massively serious, but saying things like, will Kane get back in, right? I think there's Ratchin having a good tournament that was surprising. I think there's Ratchin having the tournament he's had that is surprising. But also New Zealand not missing Kane while Ratchin's been playing the way he is. So it's kind of triple decker. Netherlands winning 2 games. Yeah, I think that's another really, really good one. I think we had them as 2 games as their best case scenario coming in. And they've been patchy, right? Like, and them and Afghanistan have been patchy at times. But when it works, it really has been spectacular for the Netherlands. And if you think about the fact that they haven't got anything out of their top order after Max O'Dowd was so successful for them in 2 T20 World Cups, they haven't got anything out of that top order. I think that has certainly been surprising. And they were good in that first game against Pakistan. I'm trying to think, there's another game I thought, was it the Sri Lanka one? They probably should have been more in that game as well. I think overall, if I was running Dutch cricket or working for them, I'd be really happy with this. the fact that they're a chance of getting a third win is absolutely incredible. There's one other that's not on my list, and thank you for everyone in the comments. I'll get to the comment ones in a moment. I'll take another quick break and go through them. But there's one other one that I did think was quite funny, which is we're now in the stage of the tournament where we are saying that Afghanistan losing to Bangladesh might be the reason they don't qualify for the semifinals. It may not be that. They may not, may not get that close anyway. But that's such a weird sentence to say out loud. It's, to use the word of the day, surprising. All right. If you have any more super chats, certainly put them in. But if you have any more surprises that we haven't covered, I feel like we've covered everything, but you never know. Please get them in. I'm Jared Kimber. This is Red Inca.
I know that you think you could run your favorite cricket team better than those who do, but no one is going to let you do that. So why not try Wicket Cricket Manager to satisfy that urge? Pick your nation, pick your league, pick your players, and yell at them when they do poorly. You can find it in the links below or by searching for Wicket Cricket Manager in your app store today. If you're enjoying these live chats, our main channel has even more World Cup videos looking at the greatest performances, the quirkiest stats, and the epic tales of World Cup cricket. Cricket is about partnerships, and this show was made in partnership with HCLTech. Yeah, the company you see on the Australian shirts. Supercharge your technology with them today.
All right. We've got a couple more to finish up here. And thank you to everyone in the chat. Anmar and Ashish. Who else we got there? Yash. Amond R. So many people again today. And as with most days this World Cup, it's my second recording of the day. So thank you very much to everyone again. But let's just get through the last few. And then we'll go to those super chats as well. All Things Cinema has said David Willey's retirement plan. Is that surprising? I think we'll see a lot of retirements coming up. I think we'll see a lot of players where this is there's not another 50 over World Cup for 4 years. Players don't care about the Champions Trophy massively. You don't really build your legacy in a Champions Trophy, do you? So I would assume that we'll see a few of those. But I understand why you've got it there. Sitesh says, India winning the first 6 matches? I don't know. I kind of said beforehand they were the only team that didn't have a weakness, right? I suppose it's surprising. 6 games is something, different wickets, different opposition, everything like that. But I'm not surprised that they haven't lost a game because they looked like the best team coming in. Since then, like Australia, New Zealand, England, Pakistan, have all kind of fallen away at different times. South Africa lost to the Netherlands. So if India is as good as they originally looked on paper, it would make sense that they would have won their games. But it's surprising when anyone wins 6 in a row. I can give you that. Sorry. And Kushal says, Adam Zampa taking a forfeit after being so out of his mind that he didn't remember the first 15 overs. I mean, Adam Zampa's tournament, I can't remember if it was the first 2.5 games. He had absolutely looked like he might never play again for Australia. And is he the leading wicket taker or is he second? What happened today? Yeah, leading wicket taker, right? In fact, if you look at the leading wicket takers list, this is really interesting. So you've got, this is second on the list, equal second. Santner, no one's guessing he's going to be the second leading wicket taker, equal second leading wicket taker in this tournament. Or actually, it's probably not second, is it? But what would you call it? Equal fourth, is it? Third, whatever it is. But he's on 14. Kotsia, we didn't even know if he would play, and he's there. Bumrah, who's a defensive bowler, he's still got 14 wickets. And then the 3 guys on 16 wickets. Marco Janssen, who hadn't taken any wickets for ages. Shaheen Afridi is the only guy I would say in that top 6 that if you'd asked me beforehand, I'd be like, yeah, I think he'll be fine. And then the other one is Zampa. And certainly, I wouldn't have had Zampa as one of the leading wicket takers in this tournament. I certainly wouldn't have had him as one of the leading wicket takers after the tournament began. So that whole list is surprising, if we're being honest. But thank you to everyone again for coming on to Red Inca. So we've got a couple here. We got Reg Jake. He said, hypothetical. The ICC have decided that for the rest of the game, South Africa will be batting first. It doesn't matter how, when, where, and why. South Africa batting first is as fixed as Mohamed Amir no ball versus England. India still the favourites. I think India like chasing, so it would if India was another team that liked to bat first, that would change that argument a little bit. I think if India do have to chase against South Africa, we're going to have to see them chase between 320 and 400. That's hard at a World Cup, and it hasn't happened very often. And, unless you have a really flat pitch like the Pakistan-Sri Lanka game against a fairly flat bowling attack, that would be very, very hard. And South Africa have been very good at taking wickets early on and struggled a little bit taking wickets later on in the game so far. So, yes, I think that is. I think that would still be hard for India in that case, but because they like chasing, because they have a batting lineup that is so solid, Rake, I think that they'd be okay with it. So no, I don't think that. But I think when South Africa bat first, they're as good as India. Problem is, I think when South Africa bat first, they're as good as Bangladesh. So maybe that's unfair. They're probably slightly better than Bangladesh, aren't they? They're as good as Netherlands. Maybe that seems more right. But thank you very much for the very generous super chat there, Rick, Jake, and Path has sent one as well. A few years ago, I asked Jared, that's me, if David Warner should bat right-handed to combat a fiery spell. How do you think he could have used these ambidextrous to more effect? Is it a missed opportunity? I don't think he's ambidextrous, is he? I think he's a right-hander who bats left-handed, which is not quite ambidextrous. It's something else, but that's a different argument, of course. What was the famous Ian Chappell comment? He bowls left arm and he throws right arm. He's a kleptomaniac. Still one of my favorite commentary lines of all time. Anyway, sorry. Huge aside there for no reason there for you, Path. But yes, he can bat left-handed and right-handed. The thing is, I'm not saying he can't face a couple of balls right-handed. We've certainly seen him do that against spinners occasionally. Has he done it against quicks? Maybe once or twice against quicks. I can't remember. The difference is that how much time is he ever going to practice to be able to make it so it's an international quality right-hander, right? It's a little bit different against the spinners because he's playing the sweeps and the slog sweeps and those kinds of shots. But I want to say there was a game where he switched to right hand in the last T20 World Cup and the ball was pitched up to him on a length and he didn't have a shot to play against it. Now, if he had spent more time practicing right-handedness, would he have that? Yes. Would he be a better batter altogether? I'm going to assume not, right? He's a diligent worker. He's not like last man in the nets kind of person, but he thinks about how he's going to practice and he works very hard at certain things. And when there's a problem, he will go and work on them and all that sort of stuff. But he can't do that for both hands. It's the same as all-rounders, right? It's like when someone will say to me, well, Jadeja's not great at this and Jadeja's not great at that. And I was like, Jadeja being flawed in batting and bowling is fine because he spends all of his time practicing batting and bowling, which means compared to any other specialist who might have the same level of batting talent as him, they are going to spend all their time just batting, right? So Warner, I think it would be a similar thing with Warner. Yes, you could improve his right-handed batting. Would that make him a better batter all around? I would probably say no, but it's a very, very interesting question. Thank you very much to Rake and to Path for their super chats and to everyone. Again, different kind of Red Inkers at the moment. And, the Discord chat and the Patreon people and my group certainly, and the comment section on the YouTube, absolutely standing up here. There's so much going on in my mind every day with all these games, of course, that I get to Red Inker and I'm like, oh my God, I want to do something on the most surprising things. And I came up with like 2 of them. I can't even remember which ones I came up with. I think I came up with Tick Shunner and like one other. I can't even remember what the other one was. So that wasn't Homicide. Yeah. I came up with almost none of those things. And the rest of you absolutely stood up. But I think it's really interesting. I do think we haven't had a lot of close games. Obviously, New Zealand are doing their best to try and make it so that the round robin stage of the tournament is not completely dead. But it's not always been the sexiest tournament. But there have been a lot of weird things happening. And I think that it's great that we could still have a tournament like that. But that's it for me. That's it for me today. I'll be back tomorrow after the next game. I'm obviously doing the scoreboard shows live after every single show, but follow the main channel. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. We've got a couple of video essays coming up and some other projects as well, looking at the most improved player in ODI cricket and some other things around that as well. And obviously the double century episodes. We've got 4 more episodes of that to come in that series as well. But thank you everyone to your support so far, and I will see you for the next show.
I know that you think you could run your favourite cricket team better than those who do, but no one is going to let you do that. So why not try Wicket Cricket Manager to satisfy that urge? Pick your nation, pick your league, pick your players, and yell at them when they do poorly. You can find it in the links below or by searching for Wicket Cricket Manager in your app store today.
If you're enjoying these live chats, our main channel has even more World Cup videos looking at the greatest performances, the quirkiest stats, and the epic tales of World Cup cricket. Cricket is about partnerships, and this show was made in partnership with HCLTech. Yeah, the company you see on the Australian shirts. Supercharge your